Salsa Legends and Masters Academy. Pete Nader here, and I am very, very excited and fortunate to have an opportunity to have with me and for you, the followers of Salsa Legends and Masters Academy, legendary bassist Sal Cuevas, also known as Salvador Cuevas.
Right.
Sal, thanks for taking the time, brother.
Yeah, man. We go back a long ways.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So, we're actually sitting in his rental car in the Bronx. It's very hot outside. We were trying to find a nice spot, but this is good. AC.
Yeah, AC. No, for the main thing. Yeah.
There's not a lot of external noise distractions. So, thanks, Sal.
Yeah, no, you got it, man.
Sal lives in Florida now. He's on vacation. He's visiting. Today's Monday, July. What's the date?
What's the weather? We gotta look at
It's like the
14th.
13th. Okay. Yeah. And in a little while, we're gonna meet Ruben Rodriguez and have a meal. Actually, I told Nicky Marrero. I left him a message because he lives nearby. So don't be surprised if he drops by. So yesterday, I was playing with Mambo Legends Orchestra at the Old Timers Festival, and I see sitting in the audience, Sal. I was like, holy sh! Look who's there. So I ran over and I said hello, and make a long story short, Sal actually got on stage and jammed with us. That was cool, and so did Jose Manuel Jr., Nicky Marrero, and Chucky Lopez. So that was, wow, that was so cool.
Yeah, after being pushed by everybody was on me. I mean, no, go up and get up there and do jam and So I pretty well won that.
So Sal, man, it's good to see you. It's been some years.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last time we've spoken here and there, but the last time we really hung out was actually, I don't know if you remember, in Peru. We did a trip with Larry Harlow's Latin Legend Band.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And that was
95, bro. 95, my God, yeah.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago. So you've been out of New York for how long now?
I've been out of New York. Well, I moved down to Florida to Miami in 92, 1 week before that Hurricane Andrew.
Wow, what a welcoming you got.
Yeah, and I was right. I had moved into the area that got hit by the northern wall of the eye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being from New York City, I was born and raised there. I was born at Bellevue Hospital, the nut house. but yeah, and in school, we never know anything about hurricanes. You read about hurricanes, one little paragraph in some science book.
Yeah, and it happens in other places.
Yeah,
not so much here.
Yeah, so I had moved down there 1 week, and then the next week we got hit with the hurricane. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty wild.
Eddie Wawa was already out there, right?
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, he was already out there.
So, Sal, let me go back a minute, and there's some of the people who are experiencing the website now don't really know about the history, and of course, the majority of the people do know about you and your contributions, but for people who don't know who you are, take us back a little bit. Tell us about how you started. How did you get exposed to salsa, and then what were some of the early bands that you played with?
Well, I go back further than that. I started at age 5. At age 5, I fell in love with the sound of music because my dad, who was a supervisor in this factory out in Jersey, where they make the beach chairs and the beach tables and that type of, like patio furniture and stuff like that. He was a supervisor, and Dad, would come home tired from work. He'd always, he'd sit in the living room. After coming home from work, he'd grab a beer and his guitar. And Dad only knew literally 4 chords on the guitar, and he would use those 4 chords for whatever song it was, regardless of what the changes were.
So they could have been substitutions.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, we could say that now, but yeah, but I fell in love with the sound, and I asked him to teach me those chords, and he taught me those chords, and then after that, he would the records, the LP records.
So that explains why you're always playing chords on the bass. Maybe one of the factors.
Well, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Because it was a beautiful thing that you would play chords. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Interrupt all you want. So I fell in love with the sound of music. I asked him to teach me those chords. He did, and then he would, from that point on, he would play the records for me. And of the trios, the trios, the cuartetos, the septetos, and told me to learn what the guitar player was playing there, and I would do that every day, every single day. Yeah, oh yeah, man. And then especially during the summer when there was no school, I'd be at the record player all day long. As a matter of fact, I still have. I still have I think I have maybe 1,500 LPs, the vinyl LPs. Oh yeah, and I have the 78s too. Yeah, they're collector's items. So I would practice and I get frustrated because a simple chord. Well, now it's a simple chord to us, but back then it was like murder. It was like I couldn't figure it out, and I stayed on the thing until I learned. Anyway, I learned guitar, not by reading or anything, by ear. And then I started playing with, there was a guy named Carlito Perez in Puerto Rico, famous trio guy, and he had taught his son how to play the requinto, the lead guitar. Well, his son and I, and this third guy, I forgot the third guy's name, but it was Carlito Perez Jr., Sal Cuevas, and this other guy that played maracas and the guido and all that stuff. Well, we had a trio. We even came out on the Milta Silva show.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Holy crap.
I was 12 years old, and I was the biggest guy because I was always tall. On Milta Silva show. As a matter of fact, after our thing on the Milta Silva show, we also accompanied on her show that same day, right after our part of it, Yolandita Monge from Puerto Rico. But yeah, I played trio music. Then when I was in school, and I got to junior high school, they didn't teach anything. They didn't teach guitar, because school was always the thing where they taught quote unquote classical instruments.
Right.
So guess what I took for 1 year, and I learned how to read treble clef at that point. Trumpet, yes sir. Yes sir. I always liked the trumpet, pero que la trompeta nunca me entró. It never sat with me the way I wanted to. I wanted to do something really different, pero nada. So I spoke with the teacher, and he told me, he says, well, you play guitar, right? And I says, yeah. I'll never forget his name. His name is Stuart Safa. He says, well, why don't you play the bass? I says, the bass? Well, I don't know. He says, yeah, it's like the guitar, except it's got 2 less strings. He says, but he suggested, if you're going to learn the bass, learn how to play both of them because you'll get that much more work. I says, what do you mean both? He says, yeah, the electric bass guitar and the upright bass. Sure enough, that's exactly what I did.
Good advice, huh?
The best advice anybody could ever give me. And as a matter of fact, Stuart Safa helped me get into music in high school.
My alma mater.
You went to music in high school?
I did.
Wow.
I was after you, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, I went to M&A. And then I went to Mannes Conservatory music. But I didn't even last half a semester there because by then I had gotten called by Mongo Santa Maria to go travel on the road. Right. But that's how, it's a short, thing of how I started in the music.
Do you remember Mr. Kosakov from Music and Art?
Yes.
We recently had a reunion gig in his honor, and we played for him. It was pretty cool. It was good.
Wow,
Yeah.
Kosakov, my God. That's a blast from the past.
Justin DeChocho was probably after you. He was in charge of the jazz band, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Anyway, let's not digress.
Although it's great too.
Yeah. So you were playing upright and you were playing bass guitar.
Right.
And you went to Music and Art High School and you were gigging all that time during high school?
Yeah. And but pretty much with nothing but American bands. And you know, playing well, it was called soul back then.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on it was called funk,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and some jazz. But then what happened was that in school with me was Deborah Resto. Debbie Resto.
That's my buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a great singer and all that. She became a studio singer afterward.
Yep.
But Debbie was a neighbor of Louis Cruz, who had been with Ray Barretto up until then.
I think they're actually related. As a matter of fact, I saw Debbie's sister yesterday, and she said that they're cousins.
Well, she said they say they're cousins because you know.
Okay.
Louis Cruz knows them since they were little girls. I
Okay.
mean, he was neighbors with their parents,
Okay.
and they were like really tight.
Okay.
But they lived I think across the street from each other, or you know, they were neighbors somehow.
Okay.
And Debbie found out, you know, while in school, that Louis Cruz had left Ray Barretto's band and started his own group. And he had already recorded, Eddie Guagua did that. And he was looking for guys to form his band.
What was the name of that band?
The Louis Cruz Orchestra, you know, just Louis Cruz and his group.
Okay.
And so she had told Louis about me. And he says, "Well, bring him over. I'll audition him and we'll see." So I went over to his house. He gave me the charts. I sight read them, you know, like nothing, and I got the gig. He couldn't find a bass player up until then, and because all the bass players that were professional, they were kind of working with bands already.
Right.
So, and I got the gig, and that's how I kind of started in Latin music. Well, I had also played before that with Ricardo Marrero.
Ricardo Marrero in the group.
Right, and he's also
Was Dave Valentin in the band?
Watch this, because that's an interesting thing. Dave Valentin, at the time, was also like Richie Marrero, Dave Valentin, Andy Gonzalez. I think Jerry Gonzalez. I don't know if Jerry went to music. Yeah, he did go to Music and Art. Several of those guys, they graduate. They're like from the same group. They graduated the year before the year that I had gone into Music and Art, they had just graduated. And Dave Valentin used to play not only flute but saxophone. That's freaky. And he used to play in the band. Mm-hmm. There was a trombone player that was also from Music and Art named Sean Mahoney. John Figueroa, we used to call him Figgy, was a saxophone player también. He wasn't from Music and Art, but anyway, he was in a group, and who was playing piano and lead singer was Angela Bofield.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But and Mike Viñas. Now the thing is that with Richie Marrero's group, Mike Viñas, he also plays guitar. So we would trade off on some songs. Really? I would play the bass and he would play the guitar, and then on other songs it would be the other way around.
Wow.
But anyway, I worked with him and for a short while, and then after that, in Music and Art, I was playing with the soul bands, the jazz bands, and all that stuff. And then this thing with Louis Cruz comes up, and I got into Louis Cruz's band. I worked with him for about a year and a half. From there, I went to Tony Pavón y La Protesta.
Was Nestor in the band at that time?
Yes.
Wow.
He was a singer. He was a singer.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yes.
El Albino Divino, may he rest in peace. What a,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
a talent. Yeah.
And he was the only Latin male singer that I knew that had also studied music. He was studying with some private teacher and a singing coach, and taught him how to read. So and because of that, Deborah Resto and Nestor Sanchez were like the two studio singers that they would use for all the Latin stuff.
Right, I remember that.
Incredible. You know, but yeah, and then I went with Tony Pavon. Then after Tony Pavon y La Protesta, I went with Mongo Santa Maria. I was 17 years old. Yeah, man. Fascinating, man. But yeah, all that time, and then after Mongo Santa Maria, I worked with him a year and a half. Then when I came back, we were resting, and Los Quimbos started. Those guys had left Típica 73, and they started Los Quimbos.
Adalberto, and at the time it was Orestes.
Oreste
right?
Vilato. Harry Vigiano was in the group, and then later on, Nesta, the tres player.
Nelson.
Nelson, Nestor. Nelson was the tres player. Joe Monazzi. Joe Monazzi was in the group. Roberto Rodriguez.
My idol.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Robert, Reinaldo Jorge was in the group.
I'm trying to. I remember the first time I met you and heard you play was actually in Christopher's on.
Wow.
2nd Avenue, I think it was.
Yeah. It's something like that.
Upstairs. I don't remember the band that it was with, but I was like, holy shit, who is this guy? and then I think we spoke that night, and that was the first time we met. I don't imagine you remember that night, but I do. And then next thing I know, I saw you playing all over the place with everybody. And I don't know if I had started with. I guess maybe I had just started with Harlow. How old are you now?
I'm 60. I just turned 60 on the 16th of June.
Okay. So you're a few years older than I am. I'm 56. But we kind of arrived on the Latin scene close in proximity in time.
Right.
I started with Harlow when I was 15 going on 16. And I guess you had arrived shortly before that, or maybe a year or two before that. But I hadn't heard you play until that time at Christopher's. So anyway, back to you. You were with Los Quimbos.
Excuse me for a second. You know Larry Harlow also went to Music and Art.
I know. He gave me his jacket.
Oh yeah.
He gave his jacket. Doesn't fit him anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Music and Art. But he was in the 50s, of course. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were okay. Yeah, the Quimbos. I worked with them from 70, 75. The Quimbos didn't last very, very long. 75 to like 76-ish. And during all that time, you remember the Corso.
Of course.
And all those clubs, Barney Google's, all of those, the Hippocampo up here in the Bronx.
Jose Rosado. Did you see him yesterday? He was there. Do you remember Jose Rosado? He was the owner of the
Right. Yeah, then he opened up Ochentas.
Yeah.
I didn't see him. He was there.
He was there.
I would have loved to have seen him, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then there were like all these clubs in New York City, all over. I mean, all of the Bronx. There was the Época
Bronx.
también. Everything. The Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan. I mean,
Queens didn't have as many, but
it still had some also.
Had some, yeah.
So, you know, being with Los Quimbos and with Tony Pavon before then, and with Cruz and all, I had already played a lot of the clubs. And Johnny Pacheco, Victor Venegas was his bass player at the time, and Victor and I had become friends. And Victor was leaving the group to play with the piano player Hector. What was it?
Rivera?
I think it was Hector Rivera que he had that group, el
Conjunto Candela.
Conjunto Candela, exactly.
Yeah.
Victor was going to go play with him. And he was leaving Johnny Pacheco, and he asked me if I wanted to gig. I said, yeah, because he needed somebody to recommend. And he recommended, and I kind of knew Pacheco already, from being, in the Corso and all that stuff. So I got the gig with Pacheco, and I worked with Pacheco for 2 years. And in the meantime, I started to record with.
No, Pacheco, you play the baby bass, right?
Yes.
He wasn't really not for that style anyway. He wasn't a fan of the guitar.
Of the bass guitar. But I'm the only bass player that ever played, that recorded Fender bass with Johnny Pacheco. Believe it or not, it was Johnny Pacheco with Celia Cruz, and it was a merengue. And I played the Fender bass. First one in Pacheco's history.
Probably the last, too.
Yeah, probably the last. But yeah, I worked with Pacheco for a couple of years, and then at some point in between there, Willie Colon was starting with Ruben Blades, and of course I knew everybody, and then Willie Colon called me for that, and I started, working with Willie, playing bass, the bass guitar and the baby bass. Yeah.
How long were you there?
With Willie, oh my God, I was his musical director for a while. I did the first few albums with him and Ruben Blades up until Ruben Blades made the group Los Seis del Solar, which is when he, it was more like a sextet or something.
Right.
But yeah, all the albums, Metiendo Mano, Siembra, with Plástico, and all of those, Maestra Vida, all of those albums. And I also had recorded with Hector Lavoe like 16 albums, 17 albums, something like that. Yeah. And with Celia Cruz, I had recorded with Celia Cruz.
And you're not rich?
No. No.
Okay, so Celia Cruz and
Celia Cruz with Willie Colon, Celia Cruz with Ray Barretto, Celia Cruz with Johnny Pacheco, Celia Cruz with La Sonora Ponceña, Celia Cruz with the Fania All Stars. With Celia, I wound up doing like about, I don't know, 18, 19 albums. Tú sabes. And I've always been into the recording thing, somehow wound up that way with Latin.
So let's kind of change direction just for a minute, because you and I were talking about it earlier. You got a day job. With all that stuff you were doing American jingles. How many jingles were you doing a week back then?
There were 5 bass players that were doing all the jingles in New York City. Will Lee, bass player on Dave Letterman. Marcus Miller.
I went to high school, music and art high school.
You went with Marcus, right? Okay, so yeah,
he used to play the clarinet.
Right. And what was it?
Bobby Franceschini.
No, but and the bassoon, was it?
I guess. Yeah. I remember him as the clarinet.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, Will Lee, Neil Jason, who used to play with the Brecker Brothers, Francisco Centeno, and Francisco, he used to kid around and say, no, there's always room for another Puerto Rican in this, so I'm going to get you in. And he got me into the jingle scene. So it was the 5 of us, and we would do, each one of us, daily, between 5 and 7 jingles a day for different producers at different studios, Monday through Friday.
Amazing.
So I was making money with that, and then in the afternoons, we would normally be done by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I would have a couple hours break, and then I would head to La Tierra Studios to go record, with the Fania people. And then at night I would go do gigs.
We're back. So you were doing jingles. You mentioned 5 guys.
Yeah, and we were doing all the jingles, and in New York, 5-7 jingles a day, Monday through Friday. Then in the afternoon, I would go do Fanias, whatever Fania had for me to record with. And then at night I would go do the gigs.
So it sounds like you were making a decent living.
Yeah.
But
then in 1979, and like around the end of 79, the beginning, like 80s, it started to change because they started to use the synthesizer. And these people got smart and they figured, well, why pay all these musicians? We can pay one guy, have him work for us exclusively, and he can do all the stuff on the keyboard.
So they were using sequencers and they would program the bass parts.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
So when that started to happen, everybody's scattered. I mean, everybody's looking for, to maintain yourself. So what happened was that I started to take a bunch of civil service tests. I took the postal exam. I took the exam for train conductor, for bus driver, city of New York. I mean, all of those. Louis Mangual, as a matter of fact, was
he retired a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I used to see him when I was at work. Yeah,
oh, yeah?
on the bus. Yeah.
So it just got like that. So I just started taking a bunch of civil service exams, and the first people that called me was the Department of Corrections. And so I went and took that. I took the thing for Port Authority Police también, for the city of New York PD and all that. But the corrections department is the first people that called me. So I started working for them. I went to the academy and all of that stuff. Became a peace officer, and I started working for them. But all along I always
still playing.
Still played. That's one thing I never, even in Florida, I never stopped doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a necessary thing, and nowadays I'm glad I did, because I developed a pension, retirement for the rest of my life, and I can still play.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah.
So how long did you work with? You did corrections for a couple of years,
right?
And then did you do PD here, or?
Yeah, briefly, and then I moved to Florida.
Okay. And you found a job in the same.
Yeah, down there, I got the certifications, because down there, you get certified for each thing, and the certifications last for 4 years, unless you if you're still working in the same thing, the certifications continue. But if not, they expire after a certain time, and you have to retake the test and all that stuff. So while I got myself situated down there, I started working in this thing called forensic corrections, which is dealing with the nut jobs. Yeah, so it was like a correctional facility / hospital.
Wow.
For all the crazies.
Okay.
I did that for a while, and then I got the police certification on there, and then I started working in the police department, and I retired as a sergeant. Well, down there, once you retire, they automatically move you. If you're just a regular officer, they move you to sergeants.
Really?
Yeah, position only for. It's like something that has to do with the pay. They move you up a step, and so that you can get the pay, and that's what you retire as. So I retired as a lieutenant, technically, but I just never went back and got the badge and the ID. I just kept the sergeant's ID and the badge, and that's cool with them.
And the lieutenant's pay.
Right.
It's not a bad deal. They must have some good contract negotiators that worked out in your favor. That's great. So now you got Did you get partial pension from New York and also the pension from Florida? Or
No, just Florida.
okay, good.
Yeah.
So you don't have to work if you don't want to because
Right.
your pension and
That covers everything.
you're gonna get Social Security in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And you gig and you do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. And now I ride my motorcycle and go hang out.
Tell me what kind of motorcycle you have. You have the big sucker. What's it called?
Yeah, it's a Honda Goldwing. It's the biggest one that they make, the fanciest one. It's really like a Rolls Royce on
two wheels.
On two wheels. It has a cruise control. It has AM and FM radio. I have a 6 CD changer. I also have a connection for the iPod. Is it?
iPod, yeah.
I have a connection for that. It has a CB radio, so I can talk to truckers.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's got everything on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nice.
So let's talk about when you moved to Florida. Who were some of the bands that you played with, or still currently? What kind of things are you doing?
Well, I started working on there with Hansel y Raúl, who had what was that, Charanga?
Charanga 76.
Charanga 76.
They're doing a reunion coming up soon.
Oh yeah,
Here
okay.
in New York.
Yeah, I've always maintained a friendship with them. I started working with them. We went to Cuba as well. Besides the 1979, March 1st of 1979, I'll never forget the date. March 1st to the 5th, I went with the Funny All Stars to Cuba. But then in 94, with Hansel y Raúl, we went to play in Cuba, but we were in the Guantanamo side, so it was the U.S. side.
Oh.
And Celia Cruz went to Cuba, to Guantanamo.
Okay.
That was the only time she had ever returned back to Cuba since she left. And Willie Chirino también fue, he went on the trip.
So you played for the military, the U.S. military in Guantanamo?
No, we were playing for the people that were trying to, that they would try to leave Cuba in the balsas, these rims. I mean, that they were trying to, find ways of escaping Cuba, and they would either get messed up out there in the water. It's only 90 miles to Key West.
Right. But it's shark infested and it's ocean.
It's ocean and it's messed up, and they would they had no water and stuff like that. So they would get found by the military, the U.S. military, the Coast Guard and stuff like that. They would take them back to Cuba, but to the Guantanamo side.
So they were kind of like,
they weren't prisoners. They were not prisoners at all.
Yeah, but how did the Cuban government feel about them trying to leave and accepting them back? Would they be penalized? No, they wouldn't. So they were kind of like seeking asylum within Guantanamo.
Exactly.
Not prisoners, but not welcome back in
their own country.
Yeah.
And it was sad, man. But anyway, we played for them, and that was fun too.
So in '94, when you went back with Hansel and Raúl, no, it was 2004. You said, right? When you went back?
In '94, I went back to Cuba.
Okay. Now was
Guantanamo.
Both times was Guantanamo?
No, the first time was in Havana. With the Funny All Stars.
Oh, okay.
That was in Havana. That was a cultural exchange that CBS had hooked up.
Okay.
CBS, they took the CBS Jazz All Stars, Cedar Walton on piano, Jimmy Heath and Percy Heath on bass and saxophone, and as a matter of fact, I got Elias Lopez the gig with the CBS Jazz All Stars.
Oh, nice.
Because they had I think they had contracted Freddie Hubbard for the gig, and he couldn't, and at the last minute he couldn't make it or something like that, so they were stuck without a trumpet player. And I told them, I says, look, I got the guy for you. So I got Elias Lopez on the thing, and he's forever grateful for that.
So how was that trip? How long was it? And
That was only 5 days. Well, only from the 1st of March to March 5th. But uh, it, it was the CBS Jazz All Stars. Hubert Laws was on there. All these guys, and they had this group called the Trio of Doom, which was Jaco Pastorius, John McLaughlin, and Tony Williams. And they were, as a matter of fact, I'll never forget a little thing. Jaco Pastorius, he was bipolar.
Yeah, I heard that.
And with his craziness in the hotel, he starts saying, "I want some cocaine." And I mean, hello,
in
Cuba, and and back then especially, he started yelling it out. Get me some cocaine, and as a matter of fact, it was either Jimmy Heath or the bass player, who's Percy, yeah. One of them was telling him, "Jaco, you can't be saying that here. We're in Cuba. You kidding? You go to jail. This is, I mean, Fidel Castro will have you arrested." He says, and Jaco started yelling out, "Oh yeah, well, if I'm in Cuba, well, tell Fidel Castro to bring me some cocaine." It was nuts. So they finally wound up taking him and locking him up in his room and all of that. But that was crazy. But yeah, they played. I saw back then at the theater. It was a Karl Marx theater. Because of the cultural exchange, I saw La Aragon, the original, with everybody, with Bacallao, all of the famous Aragon people. Iraquere, Arturo Sandoval has still not, he was
still with the band.
Yeah, him and Paquito de Rivera. So I got to see all those guys and meet them, and Tataguine.
Now, do you have pictures of all this stuff?
I have, I have pictures at home of that trip and all of that.
You should share some of that on my Facebook page.
Oh, okay. All right, I have to dig them up. But yeah, I have pictures of all of that stuff. Yeah, man.
Cool. So, back to Florida, Hansel and Raul. What else? What did you do?
I worked with Chirino también. And then
Sammy Timbalong in the band, Chirino's band at the time you were there?
Yes, he was.
May he rest in peace.
Yes, may he rest in peace. Great percussionist.
Yeah.
Which we worked together with Fascinación.
That's right. That's
right. Taking you back a few years there.
Yeah, we didn't mention that when you were in New York. You played with Grupo Fascinación for a while. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I worked with them for a while. All the bands. Anybody that might be interested, they can look on Wikipedia.
Do you have your bio there?
Yeah, there's this girl from out on the West Coast. What's her name? Molion. She's a piano player and a musicologist as well. Okay. What's her first name? Anyway, last name Molion. She did this thing on Wikipedia. Yeah, and it's got like a bunch of the people that I played with and back here in New York and some of the people that I've worked with down there. A bunch of the people that, so anybody that may be interested, they can check Wikipedia as well.
I was telling you before, I'm not sure if we have a page for you yet on Salsa Legends and Masters Academy, but we will. And
oh, thank you, man.
We will probably get some of our information from Wikipedia.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, Willie Chirino.
Yeah. Then Emilio Estefan in '95, he finds out that I'm living down there now, and he went crazy. It took him 2.5 months. He had 2 of his personal assistants trying to track me down, and they finally did after 2.5 months from him finding out, and I haven't stopped working since.
Cool. labels. Did you do some of their recordings and?
Well, with Gloria Stefan, since '95, I've done every single album she's been on, except for the last one, which she wanted to use a symphony orchestra for that, so she used the University of Miami Symphony Orchestra. So they, their bass players and all that stuff. But other than that, every single one, every single album, and also with Thalia, with Patti Materola. These are all like Spanish pop. Um, well, they're all on Wikipedia.
Okay. Have you done anything with Sergio George?
Yeah, I did a couple of things. I did Tito Nieves, Fabricando Fantasías.
Okay.
That that was with a través de Sergio. I've done a couple of things with Sergio for Mark Anthony también. This song called Que Precio Tiene el Cielo, which they flew me out to Los Angeles for. And I've done with Mark Anthony as well, with Carlos Vives, the Colombian guy. Yeah. There was a track that they did together, that they did in not cumbia. What's the other rhythm that they have? Is it? No, it's not bachata. Vallenato. They did in vallenato style, but they wanted to do a salsa style, so they called me for that. I did that.
So let me ask you a question. Those jingles you did years ago, do you still get some residual checks here and there, now and then?
Yeah, now and then.
And how about from this newer stuff that you're doing with?
Yeah. Well, I belong to this thing where I don't know if you know about it. If you
Phonograph manufacturers.
No.
Fund.
Besides all of that stuff, as a matter of fact, I gotta turn you on to it because you're on a lot of stuff that has paid into that thing, and it's in Spain. And they pay royalties to musicians.
What's it called?
AIE.
AIE.
Artistas. Artistas, intérpretes y something. And intérpretes, I forgot what the last word was. But anyway, you join with them, and they will pay you royalties for playing on all these things.
Wow.
And they pay 3 times a year, by the way.
Very cool.
I turned Ruben Rodriguez onto it. A bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna look into it. Thank you.
And it's AIE.es because it's España.
España. Okay.
Yeah. So
very cool. Very cool. So Sal, what advice would you give younger musicians who like playing this music? What should they do? What do you recommend? Who should they listen to?
Probably the same thing you would tell them, because you're also an experienced, very, very, very highly experienced musician yourself, you've been through a lot of the same things I've been through. Yeah, the music is cool. Play it, whatever style you want to play. Whenever you get the chance, whatever gigs, if you get sessions, do that. But definitely also get yourself a regular day gig.
It's a shame that a living legend like Sal Cuevas, who played with everybody, would make that recommendation. It really is a shame, but it's a sad situation.
Yeah, what can you do? But it's the reality.
Yeah. Sal, I think I want to take this opportunity to put something out there, and I've been thinking about doing it. The internet is great. YouTube is great in that you can pretty much find, 80% of stuff that's been recorded, people uploaded. And in a way, it's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it's not And the reason I say that is that now people don't need to go out and buy records anymore, or not. They should. And part of the result of that is the artists who recorded it, the composers, they're not getting paid for their work because it's available for free, and it affects us musicians and composers, and it's going to get to the point. I mean, if it doesn't change, it's not going to be worthwhile to be a musician, because you record something and next thing you know, it's available to the public, and you don't get your due payment for your skills and services and the years that you put in to learn how to become a good musician, composer, arranger. So,
well, I don't know about that, Pete. Like I said, there's organizations like AIE. There's another one in the United States that does the same thing. I have to find out about it, but they make sure that when stuff gets recorded, they get a piece.
yeah, but if somebody uploads something into YouTube, then anybody can hear it. You don't have to buy it. So that's what I'm.
Oh,
I'm
I
talking
see.
about.
Okay.
There's entire albums of stuff that you can listen to on YouTube. Just search for it, and it's there, and you don't have to buy it. So it's just something. People put that stuff on my page all the time too. I've probably shared stuff too, but it's something for you to think about.
Okay.
If you like this music, if you love this music, if you're passionate about it, invest a little money. Buy the CDs, buy it at iTunes, whatever. But, if we want to keep the music alive, there needs to be an incentive for the musicians to want to play the music, rather than just say, nah, I'm not going to do that because I'll never make any money.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, that's true. You're absolutely right.
So, what do you got coming up? What do you see yourself doing in the next 3 years?
I'm just down in the Florida area, because I live in the Fort Lauderdale area, north of Miami. But I'm always, every so often Emilio calls me, because he calls me for all his sessions. Regardless, the minute he gets a session, he always calls me to play bass. I don't know what else he's got. I just recorded like 3 weeks ago or so for Black Eyed Peas, Will I Am, which is really William, but Will I Am. Black Eyed Peas, I did a couple of things for them.
Did you say you did something Rita Moreno?
Yes. I also recorded for Rita Moreno. There were 2 songs that she did down at Emilio's studio, and then the rest she's doing, because she lives in Oakland, California. She's been living there forever. She lived for a long time with Marlon Brando. There were a couple type thing. Never got married, but anyways. But she lived with Marlon out there in Oakland, California.
Now, did you get to meet her at the studio, or was that she wasn't around?
No, she wasn't around. She wasn't around at the time. She was out there in Oakland.
When I was in junior high school, I won a scholarship, and the presentation I'll never forget was at Carnegie Hall.
Oh.
And she was the one that presented the scholarship to me, and she kissed me on my cheek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a famous kiss then.
Yeah.
It's a famous kiss. Yeah. No, she's finally retiring. Rita is now 82 years old, and she's finally gonna retire. Imagínate.
Last time I saw a picture of her, she still looks great.
Yeah, that's what
amazing.
Yeah. She's still very pretty and very, nice. I mean, she's a great actress. And I did that.
Actress and singer.
And singer,
and
yes.
she used to dance her butt off too.
Right.
back
Oh
in the
yeah.
day,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely something to be proud of for us Puerto Ricans. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also recorded this one song, which is also out for Alejandro Sanz, called No Madura El Coco. I recorded on that song. That's out already. Uh, who else? For this group, Il Novo,
Yeah.
that Italian, the
Yeah.
Italian three guys.
Yeah.
I recorded 2 songs for them.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing with
Very
Emilio.
cool, very
Yeah,
cool.
you know.
So, like, if I need to borrow money, I could probably go to you, right? See, you're doing okay. I'm happy for you, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're
thank
doing
you,
good.
thank you. But
God.
that's all. That's, I mean, there's down in the Miami area, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. Um, there's bands that gig, that do gigs because they got the Latin clubs down there. Nowhere near as much as New York, of course. Well, back then.
Back then.
But nowadays, down in Miami, there's several clubs where they have salsa music, where they have the bands playing, and if the musician doesn't do that thing, and they do like the wedding circuit, they're playing all the weddings and that kind of stuff. So,
is there any Latin jazz going on in the area?
Yes.
There? Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Well, Sal, I appreciate you taking the time. It was great to remember some of that stuff that.
Yeah, well, you did a lot of that stuff too, man. So I'm not gonna let them,
think that I wasn't a part of it.
Oh yeah. Oh, you were very much a part of it. And from M&A high school, from music and art.
Yeah.
So absolutely,
So now we gotta find Ruben Rodriguez. We're gonna.
Oh yeah.
Grab a meal. Sal, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah,
brother.
no, thank you. This is great.
Sal Cuevas, ladies and gentlemen. Exclusive interview here on Salsa Legends and Masters Academy.
Thank you very much.
Tell your friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Salsa Academy. Check it out. It's something that's important, really, to continue, and to have all of this continue on, at least, for history and for the younger musicians to learn something of great importance.
And even non-musicians who
Or
just
that's true also.
Thanks, Sal.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Okay.